All right, so this is Tom Martin, and welcome to the last installment of Talking with Tom in 2011. My guest today is none other than the famed social media maven, DJ Waldow. And so, DJ, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to do this, going outside of the Talking with Tom format, which was, as everyone knows, all done on the iPhone. I would basically stalk people around the country, get them to let me interview them on an iPhone, edit everything on the iPhone, publish it. And that was it. That was kind of the shtick, to show people that you really can do a lot of content marketing with nothing other than an iPhone. But in doing that, it was great. They were short, they were simple, but a lot of people would tell me, man, I really wish you would have talked more about that subject with the individual. I wish you'd have let that person expand on their idea. And so DJ, whose video is above his answer that was recorded at Blog World LA, I thought, well, because DJ is the last word. For those of you who know, I tried to get Stephen Colbert. That's who y'all voted should be the last word, but I guess Stephen's just too cool to talk with Tom. But I think it's appropriate, DJ, that you are the final word, the last word of the process, because I think throughout the entire program, you've probably been one of the biggest supporters from day one, in terms of just personally sending me notes of support, sharing the interviews, tweeting them, etc., which I think is totally cool. So I think it's kind of interesting, and that it just worked out that you are the last word, and you actually had one of the more interesting comments of all the folks. So thanks, and welcome to the final installment.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And wow, that was a long time for me to be silent. I don't know if you know how painful that was for me to have to sit here and look pretty for that 90-second intro or so. But no, I appreciate being on. I mean, I love being on here. I'm a big fan of what you did over the past year. I think it's certainly a unique format, and you got some of the best, brightest, smartest people in the industry to talk with you, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that was really the cool part about it. Is part of the goal for me was it was an excuse to go and basically stalk people who I really wanted to meet, but I might feel kind of odd just walking up to at a conference and saying, hi, can I talk to you for a few minutes? So that was pretty cool. But also what I thought was really cool is that, of course, you've got your own gig now, Waldow Social. But prior to that, you were the community manager for Blue Sky, and that's what I always thought was the coolest thing. Here you are the community manager for a competitor, because as everyone knows, Emma has been the sponsor this year. And yet you were still this huge supporter of a marketing program that was really helping your competitor. And I just thought that was a class act. And I wanted to say that because that always just blew me away.
Yeah, hopefully Blue Sky Factory was okay with that too. But I'm always a believer in what's that whole phrase of rising tides, that whole stuff. I do think it helps everybody in the industry. And one of the things that's neat for me about living and breathing email marketing for so long is there's a lot of great people in this space, and everybody really, we're all competitors, but yet we all want to help each other out. I mean, there's enough business out there, let's be honest, for everybody. Just like in the social media world. I mean, you could argue you and I now compete. We're both helping people with social media marketing and mobile marketing and things like that. So, but yet, we talk and share ideas and information. So I think it's great too.
Yeah, that really is interesting. Well, and I don't think the guys at Blue Sky could get too bad, because I had kind of forgotten about this. But the first word of talking with Tom was Greg, who was the founder CEO of Blue Sky. So I guess they sort of bookend the whole thing, and I guess maybe Emma should send both of you a nice little Christmas present to thank you for helping them with their marketing this year.
Right.
Well, I thought your response at Blog World was especially interesting, because I kind of have been of the same mind myself. And for those of you maybe that didn't catch DJ's response above, we'll shorten it down to basically overload. That this social media platforms are stressing people out, because you feel like, oh my God, I didn't tweet today, or I didn't go check Facebook or whatever, and that's going to cause like a boomerang effect. People are actually going to start to withdraw, was your 2 cents. So, let's just kind of start there. Talk to me a little bit more about what you think is going to happen and where you think people are going to go with that.
Yeah, I remember talking about that, and I had been thinking about a lot before you and I talked. I mean, of course, there's this pressure, and you've got 90 seconds to be on camera and talking with you, and there's this pressure to say something profound. And but I really believe that there is this overload. I mean, we all have our mobile. I mean, look, my mobile device is sitting right next to me, right here. It actually already rang, and has been beeping since we've been on this interview. And, there's this feeling like I don't know, I had this feeling for a while now where you wake up in the morning and, and people always talk about what order you do things in, but you wake up in the morning, you grab this thing, or you grab your iPad, you grab your computer, and you start going down the checklist of, okay, I got to check into email and see what's going on there. Oh, I got to check into Facebook and see, I got to do Twitter. And now there's Instagram, and now there's, Google Plus and LinkedIn and all these different social networks and all these different places and I'm not even talking about location-based stuff. All these things that you feel obligated to do all the time. And then all of a sudden you get done with that, and then you're like, okay, now it's time to work. And I know there's arguments back and forth. And listen, I tell my wife all the time, yeah, I do business on Facebook. I do business on Twitter. I get new leads coming into Waldow Social as a result of interactions I have on social networking sites. But I'm talking, by the way, more on a personal level, not from a business standpoint. But I mean, Tom, you can relate to this. You go out to dinner with people in the social media world, and what happens? In fact, I didn't even realize this was happening until my wife went out to dinner with us, and she reminds me this to this day. Everybody sat down at the table, right? Wherever we were, whatever restaurant we were at, everybody went like this. And the first thing everybody did was, oh, I got to check in. Oh, Tom, let's take this picture of you and let's post it to Twitter. And everybody's doing all this stuff. And my wife said, what's going on? Like, we're at dinner together. Why aren't people talking to each other? Now, to be fair, my wife is somebody who has a Facebook account and logs in once every 9 months. She's never been on Twitter. She understands how they work, but it's just not her thing at all. And it just got me thinking about, there is this feeling to constantly be updating stuff and to constantly be sharing. And I just think that we're starting, not everybody, but we're starting to get to that point where it's just too much. We're just doing that and not doing other things.
Twitter's off.
See, this is actually good. We should record. We should include this in recording. This is exactly the point, right?
I mean, I can't even have a freaking. I thought I shut everything down. Oh, I know. Maybe it's like an iCal or something. Let's shut all the stuff down.
I hear your phone too now.
My wife. She has an uncanny knack.
See, this is perfect though. This is all stuff that should be included. Maybe this is the outtakes. Maybe this is all the outtakes, right?
This is the blooper reel.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a call. You're getting a call from your wife. Your email is going in the background. Yep. There's my dad. Missed call from my dad. Yep. There's my daughter. Right. I mean, that's see, that's exactly it. There's these distractions nonstop. It is nonstop distraction. In fact, Chris Brogan wrote this blog post. It's one of those that I keep going back to. I think the title of it was "You're Not That Busy." Yeah. And it was fascinating because it basically went through this whole thing and it talked about the human psychology behind this, where there's this, you get a little bit of this endorphin release where you post something on Twitter, and then what do? What's the first thing you do if you post?
Oh, I go see if anybody clicks on it, I guess.
Exactly. You go and see, refresh. You read a blog post and somebody leaves a comment. You're refreshing to see if they leave a comment. You're seeing if your Facebook, people looked at the photo that you just posted, or if people are commenting, or if they're retweeting. Like there's this need, and Chris described it as this need like for validation. Where I don't, my pushback to my wife has always been, it's not as much that as it's, I like the human interaction. I like the conversation that it creates. But in a lot of ways, it's true. We're looking for that validation that something that we did, somebody approved of, or somebody found it was funny, or if it was helpful, and all these things. And I just think we're getting to this point where we're spending so much time doing all that stuff that we're forgetting this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You and I having a real conversation back. And let me be clear. I'm not saying that having a conversation back on social networking sites like Twitter or Facebook is not real. I think that's very, very real. But there's something different about this quasi face-to-face, or really seeing you in LA. I mean, there's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's funny because my wife, while she doesn't do a lot of Facebook and all that, she texts a lot. Her friends, they do a lot of texting. And I always the argument we always have is I'm like, well, look, you text with your friends. That's no different than me tweeting with mine. And I think what's interesting is she doesn't get because like you, I use I use it largely the Facebook and Twitter, etc. It is for business. I do find leads. I get business. I create awareness of myself, etc. And but at the same time, a funny thing happened on the way to Twitter is that I became friends with people like you and Jason and folks and Jay Bear and stuff that where, are we going to be, are they invited to my kid's wedding? Maybe, maybe not. But I certainly feel like there's a level of friendship that when we're in LA, we're not just talking business. We're talking about each other's lives. We're giving each other the kind of friendly advice. I mean, out in LA over drinks, Matt Riddings pulls me aside and starts going, hey, and he's asking me questions about what I'm doing with my company and where I'm going, and he's offering advice, and he's doing what a friend would do. He's saying, hey, I see something. And I've got some thoughts for you, and I've got some thoughts I'd like to share with you because I'd like to see you be successful. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really cool. Because
you the same thing. You and
I've never met the guy face to face.
But you and I were walking on the streets of LA and for Blog World, and I was taking the opportunity to pick your brain about running Waldow Social. But the thing to me that was I think the key is that it still is, there is this need to do it all the time and to always be doing it. So, in fact, one of the things I did recently is I decided just a couple days ago that I'm going to take a break from Facebook. And I'm not making this a public thing. I didn't tweet out. I didn't post on Facebook taking a break. I didn't write a whole blog post about, I'm not going to be using Facebook. But you know what? I'm just not going to post anything to Facebook for a little bit. I don't know how long, maybe a week, maybe a month. And my wife asked me the other day, she goes, did you, because she sort of challenged me to do it. And I said, she said, did you do it? And I said, yeah, I haven't. She goes, you haven't looked, you haven't logged in? And I said, no. She goes, are you missing anything? You know what? No, not really. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I do miss some of the banter back and forth. And I'm probably channeling more of that time out to other social networks, so it all evens out. But the reality is, it's just, I was feeling this obligation to be there all the time, and I think people are going to start to pull back a little bit, and you asked me, what are they going to do? Are they going to go away entirely? I see what's happening too is it still is hard to get away from Facebook. Now it's different, logging in and posting stuff is one thing, but it's easy to still go on a website and like something, or to like and leave a comment. There's other ways to use social networking sites other than constantly being logged in and doing stuff. Does that make sense? I mean, I think there's other ways to engage with it.
I guess I'm wondering is that, is there going to be, are we starting to see in your mind maybe the shakeout where you're going to see maybe another platform does wither and die? Maybe a Google Plus never catches enough traction to, and goes the way of Wave or Buzz. Maybe Twitter just stays this niche-y social media techie platform, and Facebook really ascends to be the Mac Daddy. Or maybe somebody launches something totally new that really gets people back to a singular place. I mean, where do you think it's going to go?
Here's what I would like to see from a business perspective. I'm not sure it's ever going to really play out this way, but I'd like to see them all just be social, so it's not, I realize it's not going to happen if you're investors in Facebook or Google or anything like that, but this idea where I'm just posting something or I'm interacting and it's just sort of one channel, because right now, go to any blog now and there's these social share, even in email. I talk a lot about the sharing with email, but I get this email and I'm just like, oh, okay, so now I've got to share it to Facebook, I've got to share it to LinkedIn, I've got to share it to Google Plus, I've got to share it to all these different things. In an ideal world, I'd like to just see it being social, the social channel, just like email. Think about email right now. Everybody, a lot of people pull their email all into one. So I might have 10 different email accounts, and I read them all in one, and when I send an email, it goes out from, through one pipe, essentially, out to whoever I'm sending to. again, this is pie in the sky type stuff, but I would love to see, just like this email channel, the social channel, instead of this fragmentation of all these different ways you can interact. Now, that being said, though, Tom, too, it's interesting because I still believe that all the channels have their uniqueness. You know, our friend the Tim Hayden talks a lot about Facebook really still being for your closest of close friends. You know, your high school buddies, your family, but so I would love to see it all converge into one easy to use channel.
Well, and I think the Tim Hayden, you know, smart guy, and the Tim Hayden it has some points there. Obviously, it's influenced because if you've talked with Tim, I mean, that's exactly how his Facebook is built. So I think his Facebook ecosystem probably looks a lot different than, say, mine. I think I started out kind of that way as well. I really kind of walled off my Facebook, but I started getting so many business leads who wanted to connect on Facebook. They weren't Twitterers. They weren't on G+. They really, you know, Facebook was their platform. And like you, I find I do end up doing a lot of business via Facebook because even though I know the person has my email address, I get a Facebook message from them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So what? You know, as you were talking, I started thinking about, you know, do you think that it'll become, looking forward a couple of years, where, you know, people will start to do what you've done? You've said, you know, I'm just not really going to do Facebook. I'm just going to be a Twitter guy. And if you want to find me, you're going to have a Twitter account. But then maybe people are going to start to morph into using tools like TweetDeck and Hootsuite to be the pipe. And they'll just automatically post everything to all the different networks, but they'll expect that you're going to see it in the Twitter network. I might see it in Facebook. Someone else might see it on the Google. And you know, but it'll be the same update in all places. Because that's the other thing I see. I see people posting the same content in different places, either through a Hootsuite where they're just pushing it, or they'll actually take the time to create a separate post in each platform. But it's like, wow, you just shared that with me on Facebook. And now you're doing the same thing on Google Stream, but I'm friends with you on both.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never been a fan of sharing the exact same content across all platforms all at once, because I do think each channel is unique and is different. I mean, you know, if I write a blog post, that may not be relevant to my. I mean, it's to me, it's the equivalent of seeing hashtags in on Facebook. You know, it always makes me laugh every time because my Facebook, you know, 90% of my Facebook friends are people who are not necessarily active on Twitter. They see that and they say, "What's this hashtag? What is that all about?" You know, I don't get it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
I love when you see the @ sign in Facebook and you know,
or exactly,
through a tweet like, oh, okay, you know, who's Brand Doggy?
Right. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, there's this. You know, actually going back to Chris Brogan, I think he's for the most part moved. And in fact, if you go to his Facebook page, I think it says it's now called "Find Me on Google+."
Yeah,
you know?
I saw
and
that.
So, you know, that's. I think it's starting to happen a little bit more and more. The thing that's you know, I'm personally conflicted by it because you got to go where the business is, right? And if you're, you know, you know this, you know, if you're doing business on Facebook, then and that's where clients are and potential clients, well, then you should probably be there. I think the challenge that we have is how much time do you actually spend on there? I saw somebody wrote recently, who was it? Jeremiah Oyang, I think, wrote something about in the equivalent. He's written the equivalent of 7 books or something in the number of tweets that he's written over the years. So he just basically took, you know, 140 characters. You know, the average tweet is like 100 characters, however many words that is, times. And he says the equivalent of you know, 7 books or something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just think, when I start to think about that, is we all have a finite amount of time, and it's how do you choose to spend that time? And if you spend less time in one channel, what does that mean for other time that can be spent? You know, there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't have, you know, the answer of what it looks like in 2 years. I have some thoughts about where I think I will be and what I'll be doing, but, you know, who knows?
Yeah. So do you think too? That's always another interesting question. Is you know I the other day, I don't know, for whatever reason everybody was getting all up about Path, the new mobile
Yeah.
private. You can only have 150 friends network. Do you think that in this day and age of this sort of, as people are retrenching a little and feeling overwhelmed, do you think that those kind of little new niches have a shot? Or will this behavioral action actually benefit them? Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't dug into Path a lot. I love the concept. I mean, obviously that 150 is that Dunbar number, um, and it really forces you then to choose. It's sort of like, what are the different iPhone commercials where you have your in circle, your in network. I mean, it forces you to pick the 150 people that are the most important or the most relevant for that network. Um, I think there's a chance for those, but they're never going to take over the big ones. I mean, unless
Yeah.
Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus die all of a sudden. They've just got tentacles in too many different places right now. I don't think they're going to ever take over, but that doesn't mean they can't be successful.
Yeah.
And people won't still use them. I mean, look, we're using right now the Citrix GoToMeeting for this video. There's obviously a lot of other video options out there. We could have been doing this on Skype. We could have been doing this on Google Plus
Yeah.
Hangout. I mean, so there's still other options. I can see that as being something. It was interesting to me. When you mentioned Path, it kind of reminded me of when Google Plus first came out, and there was this excitement about. I heard saw a lot of people posting about, great, I can start fresh. I've got a clean slate. I can make my circles now from scratch. But eventually, all those circles become muddled again unless you're really diligent about doing it. Something like Path that I really do like is that you said there's 150. And I think what would be really neat is to be able to I guess this would happen. You have to at some point swap out some of those people for, move some out and move some in if you reach that limit of 150.
Yeah, it's like your inner circle. I think it's usually.
But your inner circle changes. But see, think about this for a second though. Your inner circle changes. I think you and I, because we're both in the same space, are at this point in our lives will be along the same path. Not to, no pun intended. We'll be along the same path. But I think about people come and go. I have, as you know, I've got a 22-month-old daughter, and so all of a sudden, I'm starting to become, my inner circle is becoming more and more with people who have children around that age, and people who are watching Wonder Pets, and all this other. So it does change, and I think Path to me is an interesting one, but what I think where people get hung up is, okay, now great, I've got Path, but I've also got Facebook, and I've got Twitter, and I've got Google Plus, and I've got Instagram. I've got all these other things I've got to update. I'm going to add one more to that mix.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too I think about in that is I think those of us in this space, that are social media or digital marketing, can we're all early adopters. Obviously, I mean, I mentioned Path, and my wife goes, "The hell are you talking about? Path?
Right,
what is
right.
that?" And Google and all that other stuff. And so I often wonder if we aren't really victims of our own echo chamber, in that are we doing enough to make sure that we are in touch with the everyday consumer and how they use social media and how they're looking at it, and how they might just immediately say, dude, I so don't need another. I don't need that. If I want to share a picture, I'll take it and put it on Facebook, and I'll have a group. I'll have a friend list, because they don't have 2,000 friends on Facebook. They have whatever the average number is, a couple hundred.
You're exactly right. I mean, I think about that a lot when I'm talking about email marketing and this whole concept of, we've got these best practices that we preach in the email world. Never send one big image. Never use the word free in the subject line. And then yet I watch my wife and how she engages and processes her inbox. And if something says free shipping, sure as hell she's going to open it. If it's one, no, it's true, right? Or if it's one big image, she doesn't care. If it's from a brand that she trusts, she's going to enable the images. So you're right. We talk about all these things that you should do and you shouldn't do. And even me, this overload is I feel like I've got to update all. Well, most people I don't think feel that. You're right. I mean, most people don't have this pressure to because they're also not necessarily in marketing, or they're not doing social media regularly. They're probably have already picked their one channel and are doing things on Facebook or Twitter, some on Google+. So you make an excellent point. I mean, it's hard to step back and see how others view the world. Dare I say the other 99%?
Yeah, I think. Because I remember.
Can we get that reference in here? Is that acceptable?
The only reference you haven't worked in is the Michigan reference, which I'm impressed you've made it that far and not found a way to work the Michigan reference in.
Yeah, Sugar Bowl.
We are just days away. It's what, next week? No, week after next.
Yeah. January 3rd.
Who are you playing?
Sugar Bowl, Virginia Tech.
I was so hoping you were going to be playing TCU.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm shocked that Michigan is actually in a bowl game, a BCS bowl game, let alone a bowl game. But hey, I'll take it. It's been an incredible year. It's great to all of a sudden be relevant in sports again, football and basketball. And you and I obviously talk about sports a lot. And for those that don't know, I'm kind of a big Michigan fan. I don't know if you can see this. That's upside down, but that's my Michigan tattoo also. So I'm kind of into it, but
just a little, just
a touch.
Yeah. Well, but the tattooed warrior that you are, I hear you will not be in town for the game.
Oh, we're gonna go there too?
Well, I mean, you opened the door.
Yeah, I'd love to be. This whole new business thing and traveling and having a toddler, and in fact, as you can see from the backdrop, I'm in a hotel room now in California, in Palo Alto right now. In fact, coincidentally, I'm about 3 miles down the road from Facebook headquarters. So there you go.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping those drapes were not in your home. Because they're pretty and all. They make a nice frame for your face, but not exactly what I would expect from DJ Waldow.
Exactly. No, that's not my style right there, or that red chair in the background.
Oh, that's lovely piece. Well, let me ask you this as we sort of close this up. For people who are trying to advise clients, or maybe they're a client marketing person or whatever, and we're all it's the end of December when we're recording this. Everybody's obviously kind of already turning their attention to 2012 and what they're going to do and where they're going to go with things. I mean, what's your sort of summary soundbite of if you do nothing else in the coming year, you really need to be paying attention to fill in the blank?
Email marketing. I mean, it's hard for me not to say email marketing. I've been living this world for 7+ years, but I think too often people forget the value of your email list. The social networking sites are great; they're incredible, but it's this stream that just goes by you, and if you're not engaged in it, you're missing it. Me not being part of Facebook right now, I'm missing all of that stuff. Email is you can't get away from email. I mean, you can delete stuff, but it will end up in your inbox. And I think too often people forget that you should be constantly building your email list and constantly be connecting with your community through email. It's still to this day, from an ROI perspective, has the highest measurable ROI from any online channel. So email marketing is my answer.
And there we have it, an appropriate last word from DJ Waldow, email marketing, which really brings us to the end of the first inaugural year of Talking with Tom. And, let me know what you think of it. I know DJ has shared his thoughts, but I'd love to know what you think about it. I'm going to take a few weeks off as I step back and figure out what I want to do for 12 and how to do this and where we can take this to make these interviews more interesting and more importantly, more beneficial, more helpful for you, the reader. So do me a favor, just take 2 seconds and drop a comment. Let DJ and I know what you think of his thoughts. and where you think maybe we should take Talking with Tom in 12, because I truly am in that same sort of, where do I go with this? What do I do with it? What makes it a more valuable tool for you, the listener, reader? And I thank all of you for joining me on this little journey. I think all of the thought leaders who were kind enough to let me talk with them. And especially I thank DJ Waldow for stepping up to be the last word on Talking with Tom in 2011. So from Tom Martin, goodbye, good luck, and have a great new year.
Thanks. Go Blue.